and just connecting with yourself, getting very quiet and disconnecting from all that external BS, figuring out what's inside, like what is your soul calling you to do?
Hello, and first of all, thank you. Thanks for tuning in and checking out another episode of Dharma Talk. It really means so much to me that you check back and listen in on each of these episodes. And if you're a first-time listener, awesome, welcome. Thank you so much. I hope you enjoy it. This week, I've got an extra special guest to introduce. And I know that I say every week the guest is special because they all have been. But this week, the guest is truly extra special to me. It's my wife, Veronica Lombo. And ever since I launched the podcast, she has been bugging me to get on the show. Maybe bugging is the wrong connotation, but she's been asking me to get on, and I kept saying no. I kept saying, no, let's wait until we've got broader reach, more listeners, so that your message can spread to a broader audience. But after recording it, I am really happy that I decided to bring Veronica on because her perspective on these things is really invaluable. And I don't just mean about Dharma and yoga, I mean about the entire human condition, because that's what her mission is really all about. She's made it her work to get people back into feeling and accepting themselves, human flaws and all. So we talk about what holds people back from facing buried emotions and what we can do to uncover and recover from past trauma. She shares one simple 5-minute practice everyone, including you, can add into your morning routine to attract abundance into your life. And we talk about how to pay closer attention to what's going on around you and the people around you and find the profound answers that are hiding right in front of your face. So I hope we kept the dynamic professional. I hope you get a lot out of it. I know you will. I know you're really going to enjoy it. Just a couple announcements and then we'll jump right into the episode. Hey yogis, I just wanted to let you know that I've recently started recording some of the masterclasses and workshops that I'm teaching around the country and around the globe. And I'm putting them online on my website. And they're totally free for you to access. Now, I know it's not the same experience as coming and taking class in person, but I know that's not possible for everyone. So I wanted to make this an option available no matter where you are. Now, all you have to do to get access to my audio library is head on over to henrywins.com/practice. That's henrywins.com/practice. And there'll be a little box where you can drop your name and email address to get access to that page. So go check that out. I appreciate you taking a look, and please enjoy. California yogis, I'm coming your way. On April 22nd, my wife Veronica Lombo and I will be teaching a joint workshop at Raw Yoga, the Costa Mesa location, and it's called Scorpion Hour, Invert Your Backbend. The scorpions are my absolute favorite family of poses because they combine all the therapeutic benefit of backbending with inversions. So this is going to be a very fun workshop. You don't need to be a pro. You don't need to already have a handstand or anything like that. Come check it out. The event details are at henrywins.com/events. What's your purpose? What's your vision? What mark will you leave on this planet long after you're gone? I'm Henry Winslow, and you're listening to Dharma Talk, the only podcast where I interview inspirational yogis on how they're changing the world in their own unique ways. Whether you're still searching for your purpose or already walking the path, I hope these stories get you excited to live your Dharma. Hello, Dharma Talk community. Welcome back for another episode of Dharma Talk. And today I've got a very special guest, very special to me, and hopefully special to you too. Her name is Veronica Lombo. Veronica is an empath, healer, and spiritual teacher, soon to be based in Brooklyn, New York. She uses yoga, among other tools, to help people who have suffered from depression, anxiety, and negative mental holding patterns to take accountability for their lives and reclaim their power. And for those of you listening along from home who've never met me in person, might not know this, she's also my wife. So thank you, Veronica, for indulging me in this little passion project and coming on the show. How are you doing today?
Hi, Henry. Thanks for having me. I'm good. I'm nervous about this, but I'm happy to be here, and I'm trying to stand firm in my power.
Good. You got to practice what you preach, right?
Yeah,
Uh, I,
every
I am
day.
I am also nervous every single time I do one of these episodes. I haven't admitted that, but it's good. You gotta lay all your cards out on the line. I think that's something that you believe in, and we'll talk a little bit about that. So let's just jump straight into it. What does the word Dharma mean to you, Veronica? And what is your Dharma as you understand it today?
I believe that person's dharma is their purpose, and I believe it's what has to happen, or what I guess you need to do in this life for your soul's maximum growth. It's whatever, really challenges you. And I believe that my dharma for this life is to help other people, well, to share my experiences, and through that, help other people realize that they are not alone, and that it is okay to have a human experience, to feel certain emotions, and to to learn something from whatever struggles that they've faced. And I think a lot of what holds people back from moving away from their struggles and whatever has happened to them in the past is guilt and shame around it. So if we can lessen, get rid of the guilt and shame surrounding human experiences and surrounding what we perceive as negative emotion, then I believe that we can move beyond it.
Okay. And help me to kind of wrap my brain around the difference between these feelings of shame and guilt that we want to get away from those versus the negative emotions that themselves are causing the shame and guilt. And this is not meant to be, a gotcha question. I just think this is a complex idea. And as someone who has been intimately involved with this, both at a personal level and in helping others, take us through that.
So you're wanting to know what the difference is between a negative emotion and between guilt and shame.
Yeah.
I guess the best way to describe that, or to kind of explain that, is to go into my experience with all of that. And
Please. Yeah.
I started cutting when I was 15, and I was like many teenagers going through a lot of change in my life. And rather than deal with the change, I started cutting, and it was a way for me to deal with whatever uncomfortable emotions came up as a high schooler. And during the day, when people would ask me, "Hey, how are you?" I would just say, like, "Oh, everything's great. It's fine." And I had every reason for my life to be fine. I grew up in Southern California. I came from a loving and supportive family. I went to a Catholic co-ed school. I had extracurricular activities. I was healthy. So I would just say everything was fine. And I would let that pile up, because if I had any feeling of wow, I'm actually feeling very terrible about being in this school, which is predominantly white and wealthy, and I'm Filipino American, and I'm here on financial aid, like, what would that look like? And there's no way I could deal with that. So I would put it away, and at least probably got to a point where it was like every night, or every other night, I would just cut a place on my arm. And that would allow me to get that emotion out. It was like the feeling that you get, when you breathe a sigh of relief. And it was almost like a drug. You get actually a high from that. It's a big release. And I never told anyone about it for a long time. Like, for a few years, I kept it a big secret because I was ashamed of it. So it was something that I did to let out these emotions, but at the same time, I was actually very ashamed of it, and I felt guilty about it. And it wasn't until, years later, probably at least 10 years later, 15 years later, in my late 20s, that I was able to say, like, I did this. I'm recovering from this. I actually don't feel embarrassed about it anymore. This is what my coping mechanism was. A lot of us have different coping mechanisms. I did that, and other people can use food, drugs, alcohol, sex, relationships, whatever it is, to deal with this kind of insurmountable weight of feelings. Does that help
Thank you.
to explain the question better?
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. To me, what I took away from that is that you may have shame or guilt on the surface of whatever it is that you're experiencing underneath. But in order to get to that deeper level of emotional hurt or trauma or whatever it may be, you sort of have to deal with the guilt and shame first. Because like you said, it wasn't until that you got past the point of being embarrassed about that you're able to talk about it and then confront what was causing it in the first place. Does that seem fair?
Yeah, I agree with what you're saying. I
Okay,
think that you have to move past the guilt and the shame to get to, you're right, whatever is underneath that.
yeah, yeah. And it might be something totally different from one person from another, but no matter who you are or what you're struggling with, you may have some shame or guilt bubbling up to the surface that is the barrier to addressing that.
I mean, it's even a whole thing to admit that there is guilt and shame. Usually before that, there's anger, there's denial.
Right, because there's shame about the shame.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, well, let's shift gears a little bit because I want to talk more about what you're doing to overcome some of that stuff and what you have used to overcome that. So, what does your personal yoga practice look like today? And you can talk about how it's evolved over time too. And how does your yoga practice and the things that complement it support you on your path?
Will you repeat that question again?
Yeah. What does your personal yoga practice look like? And the other tools that you consider part of that practice. And how has that practice supported you on your path?
Right now, my yoga practice looks like a gratitude practice every morning. And I try to do this. I try to write this down. We've been traveling a lot lately, so I've kind of been off my routine, but I try to write at least 5 things that I'm grateful for outside of myself, and then another few things that I value about myself. For example, like, I'm grateful for an awesome poop this morning, but I feel empty. I'm grateful for a great poop. And something I value about myself is um, I'm grateful for the gift of my voice and being able to speak and use it to communicate in the world. So I have my gratitude practice, and I also do TM, 20 minutes in the morning, 20 minutes in the evening, and I have a whole package of mantras that I'm constantly saying. So I have malas. I do a few mala rounds in the morning and in the evening, and also as the day progresses, I'm constantly saying mantras in my head. I
Sorry
don't practice.
to interrupt you, but could you just explain quickly what TM is for those listening who've never heard of that?
TM is a type of meditation that uses a single bija mantra that you just repeat over and over and over again in your head. And it helps to connect your subconscious mind with your conscious mind. And I believe that it helps to kind of nick away at the kind of the chatter in your head. And it's been great at helping to ground me and just start my day from a place of clarity and power.
Great. Thank you.
As far as asana, I started my yoga practice doing Bikram yoga. I did that for a while, and now my asana practice is outside of the hot room, and I like a good 2 hour asana practice that involves pranayama, again mantra, and then full direction movement of the spine, forward bend, back bends, twists, all of it. So that's it.
Cool.
I don't necessarily do like a full asana practice every day. I do have like my postures that I do when I wake up in the morning, like wheel, supine spine twist. But I definitely make sure that I do all my meditation every day.
Yeah, I think that's a really a telling aspect of your answer to that question was that you went on and on about these different concepts before you even touched a yoga posture. And probably not so much the listeners of this podcast, but the general public out there doesn't even know that half of these things exist, let alone that they would fall under the general category of yoga. So it just goes to show all of these different options are out there, and to each his or her own. So thanks for sharing that. Okay, so you told us a little bit about your background story, a little bit about your childhood and the early depression struggles that you had as a teenager. Can you take us back to another moment now, the moment where your Dharma clicked? And what I mean by that is, when did you realize that being a healer and going out there and sharing what you know about this stuff, whether you had the tools or not at this point, when did you know that it was your duty to make a difference in the field of mental health?
I think it's kind of, I don't know why this is funny to me or ironic, but I knew that this was my duty from the moment I started cutting, actually. Maybe after the fact, the first time it happened. And I wanted to know why I was doing it. Were there other people like me, this young 15-year-old girl like me who had cut, and what had they done to move past it? And were they thriving in their life? Like, what did it look like 10 years on? So I think at the time, it was the early 2000s, the internet was still very new. And I found a lot of articles that were clinical and written from the perspective of a therapist or a psychiatrist. So I went to Barnes and Noble. I found a lot of that's when actually the self-help section became my favorite section of the bookstore. Now I think they changed self-help into personal transformation.
Or they diversified it.
Or they diversified it. Yeah. There were a lot of books on eating disorders and alcoholism and abuse, but I really struggled to find anything on the topic of self-harm. And I made a promise to myself at 15, and I was like, okay, Veronica, if you make it to 25, if you are able to live past this and survive, you're going to help people and figure out, you're going to help people and share the tools that you've learned so that they don't have to go through what you went through. And I felt very alone. The other thing was that if there were books written, they were written by people that were older and that were white. And obviously I have nothing against white people. I'm married to a white person, married to you. But I wanted someone who was more like me, who could speak in a simpler terms, and just someone that I connected with. And I felt that was lacking. So years went on, and I hit 25, and I was like, oh shit, I'm still alive. I'm still here, but I'm not living my Dharma. I tried to. I was already teaching yoga, and I've always held these goals and these dreams very close to my heart, but I wasn't actually living them out, and I kept making excuses. So I've known my Dharma for probably over half my life. And this might be true for other people listening. I ran away from it, and I felt a very heavy responsibility, and I wasn't sure that I could live up to it.
I took a couple of things away from that story too. And the first is that, if you know what you want to do or what you're supposed to do, what you feel called to do, you don't always need to know how you're going to do it. Like, you didn't even have a solution. You just knew that there was a problem that you needed answered and the solution wasn't there. So you wanted
Mm-hmm.
to be the person to create that change. And the next thing that I took away is, you said that Dharma is your purpose or what you feel called to do, but sometimes it's also translated as a path. And I
Mm-hmm.
think in this case, that's maybe a more appropriate interpretation, because when you look at it as a path, you've been on it the whole time. You weren't running away from it. It's just it took all the steps along the way to get there. And those two things kind of fit together. You don't know how to do it quite yet, but you've been stepping up the staircase every single day since then.
I think my purpose was to be on that path.
Yeah. Would there be anything else that you would want our listeners to take away if maybe they're in the same shoes as you, where they see that they're called to something but don't have the answer yet or don't know how to contribute right away?
I'm still learning, and I'm still figuring out the steps. So like you were talking about a path, and I think you can look at like a giant staircase, and you can be overwhelmed by this huge staircase, and you might not know like what's on that thousandth stair, but you look in front of you and you see like what is that exact, what is that step? What do you have right in front of you? So for those of you who are listening, who feel like you're being called thing, I don't know if you ever know exactly what to do, but I think that through meditation and just connecting with yourself, getting very quiet and disconnecting from all that external BS, figuring out what's inside, like what is your soul calling you to do? What are you maybe already doing in your life that you don't realize has come so naturally to you? Maybe it's talking to people about nutrition. Maybe you're helping with the environment. Maybe, you also have a very similar line of like helping people in your life. Maybe people gravitate to you so naturally with their problems. I think sometimes we think something is like so outside of ourselves, and then we have to do A to B to get to C to get to D. And while that might be true, it doesn't have to be so complicated. I think usually the answers are pretty simple and right in front of our face.
Veronica, why don't you take us to a moment now where you hit a wall living your Dharma? So, whether that resistance came from within yourself or from someone else, that's up to you. But take us to a specific moment and tell us what you did to face that and get through it.
Well, Henry, the challenges change. I wouldn't say that, these challenges that you have on your path ever go away, but the form might change. And it's a constant thing. Most recently, for the first time ever, got a lot of resistance. And I went over to a friend's house. It was a friend that I hadn't seen in a long time, in real life, and we were having a conversation. And I don't think I was being any more aggressive than I usually am. It was like pretty much how I am right now. And he started telling me about kind of a work/friendship situation. And I was like, it seems like you're upset with them. And I knew this because like you said, I'm very intuitive, and just from the amount of talking he was doing about the situation, and I was reading him. I just could feel that he was angry, and he did not like that. And he said I sounded like his therapist, and there was a lot of anger, a lot of deep anger. And usually it was weird because that was the first time in my life that someone had reacted that way to me. I can't remember a time ever in my, almost 32 years of living where someone has attacked me like that. And so what happened, I guess, that night is I just like, I felt that, and I was like, I need to go. Part of me really wanted to retaliate back, especially since at that point he started putting me down, kind of started bullying me in a very passive aggressive way. And I didn't say a word, and I just got up and I left. And you've been with me, so I've been pretty torn up because naturally I am a people pleaser, and I want everyone to be happy, and I want everything to be fine. But sometimes you can just be yourself, and or you can be friends with someone, and maybe you grew together at one point, and fast forward to the future, and you're not necessarily growing the same way. So if you're listening to this and that's you, it's totally okay to leave a situation where you feel uncomfortable. And also, like, you are not for everyone. And I actually started questioning. I was like, maybe I shouldn't have done this. Maybe I shouldn't have asked that question. Maybe, what could I have done differently? And the fact of the matter is I could have said, I feel really uncomfortable. I need to leave. But generally there was nothing I could have done differently. And sometimes when you meet someone who's in such a negative place, and I might have reacted the same way with the truth of whatever is going on, you will be met with resistance. And it's not necessarily that the truth changes. But obviously it can be a very hard pill to swallow.
Dharma Talk community, if you try to please everyone, you please no one. Okay, Veronica, let's end it up with one more story on a lighter note. So bring us to a major win that reaffirmed your conviction in yourself and the impact that you're making with your work. So what happened, and what did you do with that success to carry it forward?
Well, it's not something that happened in the past, but I want to talk about something that is going to happen in a couple weeks, actually. So one of my goals has been to be on Oprah's Super Soul 100, and I put all this stuff out online. I should be putting out no shoulds. I want to put out more. I never feel like I'm doing enough. It's probably the case of the perfectionist, but when I write things or I publish videos that are kind of just like expressions from my heart, I'm never sure like who's reading it, and I don't expect for people to notice. And what I've realized is that a lot of people watch or they read, but they don't necessarily like or comment. And most recently, one of my former students in Austin wrote me a message and offered me a ticket to a business training with Brennan Bouchard, who is on Oprah's Super Soul 100. She said she loves my message. She believes in me. And she wants to offer me this VIP ticket for his business training. And he focuses on spiritually minded business. And so when I read that, I was so excited, and I couldn't believe that she had actually been following what I was doing. And that was definitely an affirmation from God, from the universe, like, Veronica, you're on the right path. keep going. So that's coming up in a few weeks. It's coming up in May, and I'm also very nervous about that, but I'm excited. And also, anytime I get a message from people, when I started putting out videos online, like I said, I wasn't sure who was going to read it. And now I get messages from people literally all over the world, like from Mexico, from Poland, from different places in Scandinavia, just expressing themselves, what's going on with them, and then expressing their gratitude for my honesty and my transparency.
Yeah, you know, when you're doing work that's very important to you, I think it's not too uncommon to think that, you know, nobody else cares about what I'm doing right now, you know, and you don't expect anyone to necessarily resonate with your personal message because it's so personal to you, right?
Mm-hmm.
But every time you get a little sign like that, I think that's another green light to keep going.
And even with all the green lights, I still need a little push.
Yeah.
Henry's pushing me every day. I have all the green lights for miles and miles and miles, and I'm still like, do you think I should go? Do I need to do this? Should I step on the gas?
Yeah, but you know, that's that tendency, you know, that gives you the ability to relate to other people who have the same tendency. so, so everything is double-edged. Everything's a blessing and a curse. Okay, Veronica, apart from getting your message out on this podcast, what are you doing today to live your Dharma?
Currently, I am working on a book that will be released later this summer. I teach yoga classes, and I offer private sessions where I help people figure out the tools necessary to overcome whatever blocks they have in their life.
Without someone signing up for a one-on-one, is there any one tool that you can give all of our listeners here today who are listening, just as a thank you for listening through to the interview?
One tool.
I know it can't be personalized, obviously, but yeah, one general tool.
Gratitude practice. Always a gratitude practice. When I hear people complaining, and even when I catch myself complaining, I'm like, I got to do the gratitude practice. When you start to look at all the negative things in your life, like, oh, I wish I was like this. I don't know. This house sucks. This food sucks. My relationship sucks. You've got to like really open your eyes and, like I said, see what's in front of you. Like, oh, I'm so thankful that I even have some food on my plate because there are so many starving people in the world. I'm thankful I have a roof over my head. I'm thankful that I was able to take a hot shower and have a flushing toilet. And a gratitude practice enables you to vibrate with positive energy and with abundance so that you can manifest and attract more of those things into your life.
Awesome. I love it. And I know that you spoke a little bit about that in your rundown of your daily practice. So if anybody needs to spin back to that, you can go check out the details there. Okay, let's move on to the prana round. And in the prana round, I'm going to ask you 6 rapid fire questions. Each one of them, I'm asking you to answer in as little as one word, as maximum one sentence. Okay, are you ready to go?
Okay, let's do it.
In one word, why do you practice yoga?
Liberation.
What's your favorite yoga pose and why?
Supine spine twist, because just makes me feel good.
That's as good a reason as any.
Yeah.
Okay, what's the single best cue or piece of advice, general piece of advice you've ever received from a yoga teacher?
That's a toughie.
First one to come to your head.
Okay, I'm obsessed with this one lately. Thanks, Jared, for it. And it's for back bends. Sits bones to heel bones, inner groins back, bottom ribs in.
You went mechanical. Surprises me. Okay. Next question. Recommend one book, modern or ancient, for our audience.
A Return to Love by Marianne Williamson.
Is yoga for everyone?
I believe that everyone is capable of doing yoga and practicing yoga but I'm not sure that everyone, I believe that everyone's capable, but I'm not sure that it's for everyone in this lifetime, because it is a very difficult path.
Okay. How can our audience get in touch with you, and how can we support you in your Dharma?
You can go to my website, veronicalombo.com, and you'll find ways to contact me there, along with a library of videos that you can watch. If you are feeling like you want to learn more about the tools that I have gathered over the years. You can also find me on Instagram, same name, Veronica Lombo. And I'll be around in Brooklyn and at Lighthouse starting this month.
Okay. All right, Veronica, thank you so much for coming on the show, being vulnerable,
and
sharing
you can
your
also,
stories.
if you find Henry anywhere, you can get to me through him.
Yeah, I generally know where she is. Okay. All right, thanks for coming on. You did a great job. I love you.
I love you too. Thanks, Henry.
If you got something out of this episode, if you like Dharma Talk and want to keep it going, please do me a huge favor and subscribe, rate, and review on iTunes. I know it's not the most convenient thing to do, but it makes all the difference in getting this show out there and more visible to other people who can benefit from it. And hey, if you've got feedback or ideas, or you want to get in touch with me, you can do that on Instagram @HenryWins. Otherwise, I'll talk to you next week. And until then, keep living your Dharma.